Welcome to Swaggerized Performance Lab, the art and nuance of sport, where we deep dive into peak performance, training, mindset, and the nuance of sport. Directly talking about friends, associates, teammates, and the fragility of brotherhood. Learning what we can learn from the recent Nolan Wells tragedy. There's a there's a big contrast between the athletic field and the reality of survival and these transactional relationships and social bonds that exist. Um, Oftentimes, while you have tremendous, powerful, positive relationships in team environments, in school environments, in sports, there's a real illusion of teammate solidarity, where in sports culture terms like brotherhood and family are thrown around constantly to build chemistry. However, this case demonstrates that institutional or athletic proximity does not automatically translate into this moral loyalty of duty, meaning this sports relationship or school relationship or proximity to others in associates or what you may call as friends, because a lot of people throw around brother and friend, but that does not translate into moral loyalty, uh, or duty of care or care and concern when real world danger actually presents itself. Um, I know that from participating in high school sports, uh, participating in collegiate Division I sports, um, professional sports. And again, while you can foster and you will have some strong relationships, proximity to others and your teammates does not automatically produce moral loyalty or authority. You can see that in the Jackson Dart. You can see that where him being from, say, a Mississippi, uh, and different athletes he could be supporting a political representative. In this case, it was our current president, and in doing so, he showed an alignment. In other situations, you've seen where basketball players have showed their support in the opposing view on a Democratic candidate. In doing so, they showed some alignment. Now, those two positions right there create a different set of challenges that you'll find in your team. They all say you want to put it aside, and you can put it aside. As professionals, you can put it aside and you perform individually, but collectively, to collectively come together and unify and really, what you would find, align with each other, it's deeper than oftentimes a training room. It's deeper than um, just being out there on the court or on the field together. There's certain internal characteristics that you see in your teammates and you want to support them. So, in showing those two differences, where you have athletes, say, supporting a political opponent, you could see how that can become problematic uh, in the locker room when you look at a culture, and it would be even more difficult in a football setting where you have 60 to 65 players at any given time, and they're trying to align all on one goal. They come from varying backgrounds, they have different racial differences, they have different spiritual beliefs, they have different parentage, they have different educational understanding, they have oftentimes a different outlook on history. So these types of things can muddy the waters, and oftentimes proximity confuses people, and you can't be confused about who's loyal to you just because you're close, you're around them often, you see them often, you're on the same team as them, you're in the same classroom, you're in the same neighborhood. So it is extremely important that you as an athlete understand, one, how important your environment is, how important that is in relation to your friends, your associates, your teammates, those that are helping you to succeed, and you are ultimately sharpening each other as this iron sharpens iron, but also the fragility of that sisterhood, the fragility of that brotherhood. Let's get into it. So as you can see here, this is a diagram that I created here, and this diagram shows your inner circle. But then additionally, it shows everything outside of that inner circle. But let's take a look at this. So in your inner circle, you see you have your school, right? Your school. That your school, you're receiving education. There's a certain alignment that you have to have with your school, your university, your teacher in order to receive a grade, right? The right grade. When you're writing a dissertation, oftentimes you're aligning your dissertation to the professors that are overseeing this whole process. And if you don't align with their views, right, it becomes problematic in you getting that doctorate. So your inner circle are those people that are influencing you on a day-to-day basis, and school's one of them. Obviously, you have your family, your practice. What is your practice? Your prayer, your meditation, right? Your work. That is a part of your inner circle. A place where you're spending anywhere from 8, 6 to 12 hours a day. People don't really see that as the inner circle, but it absolutely is part of your inner circle. It's influencing you, bad, good. It's making you numb to some ideas. It's making you more aware of others. So your inner circle is not just those people you say are your inner circle. Your inner circle is those places that you have close proximity to, your beliefs. And then you have here, you have enemies and friend. So let's say, for example, in the neighborhood, in your neighborhood, you grew up in Chicago, you grew up in Dallas, Fort Worth, you grew up in Houston, you grew up in the Bay Area of California, you grew up in Sacramento County, you grew up in LA County, you grew up in Dade City in Florida, Dade City County, you grew up in that area. You have people that you have friends, but then you have people that are associates that they may know something about you. They could be friend or they could be oppositional to you. And you have to understand that the inner circle is who you're coming in contact to and who you're touching, who you're in proximity to. And outside of that inner circle, what influences that inner circle? The political climate, economics, community norms, communal relationships, racial dynamics, traditions, the legal atmosphere, and the history. So if you look at, say, the Nolan Wells case, you can see all of these different things playing a part. There's his inner circle, his school, his family, his belief system, which he seemed very optimistic, very prayerful, meditative, thoughtful, kind, faithful. That was his practice. That was one part of the circle. His work. That could be considered football, school, work, his belief system. Your belief system is not necessarily your religion or spiritual practice. Your belief system is your method of operation, how you engage, your rules of engagement. And then you have your enemies and your friends. And all of this inside the inner circle is influenced by your political climate. What's the political climate in the Bay Area, California? What's the economic climate? That would be quite different. In the Bay Area, it has a more educational. You have Stanford University, Berkeley, San Jose State, St. Mary's, Dominican, Hayward State. So you have extreme education. You have a military. So you have the technology. You have Silicon Valley. So you have a very highly dynamic and diverse intellectual base that influences the political culture, the economic culture, and the community norms, and the racial dynamics. So it influences, you can understand how that would be different than, say, some areas. So when you're choosing a school, when you're in a certain environment, do you have to understand this isn't anything that you need to be stressed about. It's that you have to understand, okay, what is the environment I'm in? What is my inner circle? And what is the external factors that are impacting, that are influencing my inner circle? When you look at that inner circle, your school, your family, your practice, your work, your beliefs, enemies, friends, associates, that's your inner circle. And there's one key component that plays a critical piece where the external factors that influence your inner circle, your political climate, your economics, the community norms. And then you see inside of this inner circle, that person, that's you, and you see a phone around you. What is that? So you have this person that is influenced by the inner circle, and then you have a phone around the inner circle. And what does the phone do? The phone allows access to you, not only through your inner circle, but it allows all the external factors to influence you. This is how powerful your phone is. So your phone bypasses any physical, right? It bypasses your inner circle and the external factors. Everything is to influence your mind. So now, maybe things that you wouldn't do, ways you wouldn't think, ideas that you wouldn't have, positive or negative, you wouldn't even have those without this phone, that you're receiving messages, you're receiving ideas, you're receiving examples, you're being fed those very things that could influence the mind in a variety of different ways. You're getting racial influence, traditional, legal, historical, political, economics, community norms, communal norms. Not only, so now you have, in this world that we live in, it becomes, you have to be more vigilant in how you navigate and the boundaries you apply in order to keep your mind clear, to keep your heart pure, in order to stay on the path for the vision that you have for your life, which is including this sports journey, this sports mastery. Again, the inner circle is not who you say is your inner circle. The inner circle is those entities that you come in contact with. That's the miss, because the inner circle is what's influencing you. Who are you coming in contact with on a day-to-day basis? It's not who you say it is, it's what you're coming in contact with. And if you look at the Nolan Wells case, you could become confused because proximity In sports culture, terms like brotherhood and family are used constantly to build up team chemistry. However, this case demonstrates that institutional or athletic proximity does not automatically translate into moral loyalty or duty of care when real world danger arises. It's so much about this. And when you understand party culture or social culture, again, in certain norms, how people party. Do they use drugs? Is it alcohol? Is it excessive? Are they using that as a way, it's just social, or is that a way for them to pacify, to relax themselves, to be different? Oftentimes in a party culture, large alcohol fused celebrations create an environment where standard human responsibilities are suspended. In these spaces, extreme negligence is easily masked as having a good time until something happens. Now that having a good time, a tragedy happens and people scramble in order to cover themselves. And then now the power dynamics start to come into play. And the power dynamics start with the communal relationships, the racial dynamics, the political climate, the economics, the community norms, the legal framework, and the history. So when you look at power dynamics in situations of tragedy, in situations where there's a shield within a culture in certain situations, now you look at how power dynamics work. How this group theory, this group play, how individuals play in a group setting when they're at risk or when they want to exercise power. Where does race play? And so I can say, honestly, I would be completely dishonest if I didn't say I've been at every level of sport in multiple different sports. I've been in corporate setting, in the highest corporate settings. I've traveled 10 different countries, and here in the United States, political climate, racial dynamics, traditions, economics, and communal relationships, race relations, race dynamics, racism, which is economic. It's not just hatred, it's economic. Is in full play. Hatred, people think of bias in racial dislike as racism, and that's not what it is. It's race and economics. So when you're in whatever situation that you're in, you have to understand the dynamics at play, the external factors at play. What is your inner circle? Who are you coming in contact with? Who is sharpening you? And the separate from the Nolan Wells case, what you see right now is individuals that are denying realities and choosing to deny empirical evidence, meaning there's been studies, there's statistical data on it, choosing to ignore it and and choosing situations that are not the most beneficial. This is separate. This is not, I'm not talking about Nolan Wills. I was talking specifically about athletes and the importance of our environment and how friends, associates, and teammates can create an illusion of this moral loyalty, but that is not automatic. It is not automatic. So you have to be very vigilant with the environment that you're in. There is a very powerful entity in groups, and it's called groupthink, and groupthink of self-preservation. So when you think about how people behave in a global society, in an American society, how pop culture influences individuals, how the music influences, and how people don't often choose to think deep. They want to be told what the best music is. They want to be told who their leaders are. They want to be told where to go. They want to be told how to work out, right? They don't, society as a whole often doesn't want to think for themselves. It wants to be told what to do. And the most powerful entities understand this. This is why they run ads. This is why they run political campaigns, so that you can be told who your leader should be, so you can be told who your representative should be. So the important thing here is for you not to be influenced externally, but for you to understand specifically how to choose your friends, how to choose your associates. And the bottom line is you're choosing off of character, you're choosing off of competence. Popularity is the last variable. Popularity and visibility should be the last variable. It's character, it's competence, it's excellence over time. What has a person done over time? How did they do it over time? What have they overcome? What is their mindset? What is their belief system? So often now, individuals are choosing based on popularity, based on visibility, being led astray from their divine vision. So when you look at communal relationships right here, you look at, say, there's a for example, there's a in the fallout right now of what's happening in Nolan Wells' case is in Ocean Spring reveals a community divided by deep structural fault lines rather than this unified hometown. When a community watches a group of acquaintance show a lack of, say, public grief or empathy following a teammate's death, the social fabric snaps. And that's what's happening in society, is the social fabric is snapping. The communities are splitting into those that demand truth, those that demand grace, those that demand some level of honesty, those that demand loyalty, those that demand people to care about each other more than this lack of compassion that society is seeing right now. When you look at the situation, you say the necessity to have a reward of $100,000 or more to rely on to get people to come forward. They're showing that there is something happening in society where the truth is no longer the standard. People are hiding behind language of virtue, but not actually the action of virtue. And so, as an athlete, it is fundamental that you understand your environment, that all the time you're in an academy environment. Just because you're in proximity to individuals does not mean that they are your best friends, does not mean they have your best interests. It doesn't mean that you always are looking for something to do wrong, but that you understand the relationship that you have with others and you understand their relationship to you. And proximity does not automatically mean loyalty. Being on the same team does not automatically mean loyalty. If you talk to many professional athletes or just high level athletes, everyone has a story about specifically, high school situations where at that these lower levels where you clearly, not only the people, it's okay if people are competitive, but clearly they were against your progress, meaning certain people, they did not want you to succeed. And if they could have, they would have put roadblocks in front of you. Meaning, if you did not make it, if it would have been better for you not to make it and to be on the side of the road without a way to take care of yourself. They would have rather seen you fail. That would have made them feel better than for you to succeed. But proximity, oftentimes at those ages, doesn't allow you to see that. So it's to understand that your relationships need to be built upon a solid foundation of people that you're sharpening, but they're sharpening you. They're not afraid to encourage you. They're not afraid to lift you up. They don't laugh at your failures. They don't laugh at your mistakes. They don't make fun of your failures or mistakes. They're actually encouraging. They see you. They respect you enough to communicate with you in a way that's purposeful or not at all. Yes, this is a rare group of people, but at the top of the pyramid of sports, either if you're at the top of Division One, you go to professional sports, that's a small percentage of people. Small percentage. And then even with that, you have the one-on-one. The myth is that we all are the same. If we were the same, you wouldn't see tons of channels with people disagreeing and commenting. People are drastically different. Because why? Their inner circle is different. Who they come in contact with every day, their family, their parentage, their practice, their work, their beliefs, their enemies and friends, which is those are people you come in contact with every day that know a little bit about you, you know a little bit about them. They're in proximity to you. They could be an enemy or an obstacle or a friend. And then outside of this inner circle, you have the political climate, economics, community norms, communal relationships, history, legal influence, traditions, racial dynamics, and more that are influencing the inner circle. So people in these situations, when they're not casting down, when they're not casting down the negative imaginations, when they're not casting down the negative thoughts, when they're not casting down all of these different influences that seek to lead you astray from your divine vision, when you're not casting that down, when you're not putting that aside and speaking positive affirmations in meditation, when you're not praying in supplication for good things over your life, over others, it takes consistent work, because all of us have imperfections. None of us are perfect. We all have our struggles that we have to work. But if we can understand those, come to better self-awareness and understanding, we can be better servants to the world, to our teammates, and ultimately, we have a better chance and have a higher likelihood, and we will most likely reach the vision that we have set for our life in this game of sport and life. I'm Mr. Smith, and this is the Art and Nuance of Sport. Again, if you want more, if you want deep, if you want training, AI programs that are customized on your specific life, money talk, NIL education, NIL assistance, timers, video timers down to the thousands that you can analyze your technique. Just download Swaggerize, scan it. It is an elite app. It is an Apple emerging app selection. This is an elite app that's used by some of the sports best. I'll see you next time, and stay vigilant and understand the importance of environment. Understand who your friends are, who your associates and teammates. Understand the fragility of brotherhood and sisterhood. But most importantly, believe in yourself. Trust yourself enough to commit to this journey. I'll see you next time.